Welcome, everybody who's here. Okay, it is time to start class. So what we're going to be covering today is the second of the 4 Ps. I did state to you that I would not hold you accountable to get all worksheets up to 26 in by the Friday before Easter, because I understand that many of you had tools difficulties. So we've gone over the tools that you will need, and I've extended the time frame that I'm giving you for the worksheets. You're going to have 3 due by Friday. They are worksheet 20, 21, and 22, and I will cover them in this session. And they all relate to the second of the 4 Ps, which is place. The place that a business is located and the factors that impact that. And we will go over that momentarily. And I will take you through the worksheets and I'll show you how to get the very best mark, what I'm looking for. And I'll also give you some hints as to the answers. So if you attend class, you will certainly get some help with the work and with doing well on the assignment. I want to draw your attention to class charts for a moment. You do have some items that are due in class charts, and this is where you'll see your assignment class 10X. Again, completing up to and including worksheet 22. And I've modified my tracking. Here is the tracking for 10X, and I've modified it to feature worksheets 20, 21, and 22, and the due date of the 24th. Again, if you've not yet submitted those, please submit them by that deadline. I also have some stragglers on session worksheet 19, which is on the Boston matrix. Some of you still have not turned that in, so please also get that into me by Friday to avoid an unfinished work symbol by your name. So going back then to what we're covering today, we're covering place. We've talked already about product and the factors impacting product, but place, the place where a business is located, where we do business, is also an important consideration. And there are a number of different factors that impact that, such as customer location. If you're producing a good, a physical object, then certainly where the raw materials are that make up that physical object, where they are located and how you're going to get them to yourself. Transport and infrastructure links, how you get in your raw materials and how you get your finished product out to your customers. And availability of staff, how many people do you need? And where will you find them? This is also a key aspect. The second area that impacts place is how you distribute your product. And we're going to be talking about 4 distribution methods: through an agent, through a wholesaler, through a retailer, and direct. And lastly, we're going to be talking about e-commerce and m-commerce and how they have revolutionized what's going on, particularly given the situation today, where many of us, our only option to get the items that we need are to order them online and have them delivered. So first of all, I'd like you to think about different products you buy and services you use. And if you want at the same time to key these in to iAchieve, you can do so. It's iAchieve and it's page 7, about the middle of the page, the Think First box. So think about the different products you buy and the services you use. Where do you go when you want to buy them? And then make some notes on that in the box below. And in the meantime, I will attempt a musical interlude while you think about that.
Marketing is how I see you. Marketing is how you see me. So let's get off on the right foot, right? I'm with the fact is they all about the image. I'm a lyrical physician, integrated vision, dedicated intuition. I do it, I don't wish it. Initiate the mission, execute it with precision and a whole lot of rhythm. Don't ever tell a lie, that's an automatic given. On the fly, don't lie. It takes just a second to own your whole life's living. Be the one to listen, that's an executive decision. Remember the 4 P's, excuse me, that wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Now let's get back to business, alright? Let me break it down. First you need the product, then you find a place. So you sell it for a price that'll get you free promotion. First you need the product, then you find a place. Sell it for a price that'll earn you free promotion. 4 P's of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion.
Okay.
Where is the best place to get leads online for your...
We'll just pause that. Great. So I hope you enjoyed the musical interlude. We are looking then at the factors that impact where a business is located. And again, if you have any questions that come up as I continue with the class, please type them into the chat and I will look at the chat periodically and certainly before the class is over to make sure I've captured any items that you want me to address. So, customer location is one of the 4 factors that impact the place that a business is located. So where are your customers? Where are they located? And how will you get your product or service to them is a key factor. Second one is location of raw materials. Now, this is particularly important if you are selling tangible products, goods, things that you can touch. Physical objects are made of various components, and those components are considered the raw materials. So where are you going to get those raw materials from? How do you get them to your business so that you can make the goods that you are selling? Again, very important for goods, not so much for services. Then transportation and infrastructure links. If a business is located in an area with good transport and infrastructure, this brings obviously a number of key benefits. Customers will find it easier to travel to and access the business. So obviously, if you are in a retail business, a retail type of business in a town, you want to be located somewhere that has good foot traffic. Secondly, the cost of transporting raw materials, if you're manufacturing goods, for example, can be made much cheaper and much more convenient by the presence of transportation and infrastructure links, good roads, good rail systems, easy access for planes, easy access for ships. All of these could be crucial factors. And then lastly, the availability of the staff. How labor intensive is it to produce your product, your goods or services? How labor intensive are they? And what factors impact the availability of staff. You have to have staff to run your business. Where do you get them from? So these are the 4 factors that indicate the place that you might locate your business. And this ties in to worksheet number 20. And I'm just going to give you some pointers on worksheet number 20 that should help you to get an excellent mark on it. So the first area looks at a good coffee production in Colombia. What is the most important factor to its location in Colombia? Well, is it customer location? Now, I'll give you a hint. Most coffee drinkers are in North America and Europe, not in Colombia. Colombians do drink coffee, but not to the extent that it's down in Europe and North America. So is the customer location the most important thing? Probably not. So of these 3, which one do you think is the most important to locating coffee production in Colombia? And which one do you think is the second most? And which one is the third most? And I'm interested in seeing your ranking, 1, 2, and 3, and why. And if you do that, that will get you the highest mark on that question. The second question is on Buxton Spring Water. Where is the company located? There's a very, very big clue right there. So why do you think it's located there? Again, similar thing, which is the first most important, second, and third most important factor to locating Buxton Spring Water where it is actually located. And then you've got a short quiz. High unemployment. Well, we know that high unemployment means that people have less money. And so therefore, it's not great for a business to sell into a high unemployment area. But can high unemployment be a good thing for a business? And if so, how is it a good thing? Second, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being located near to competitors? Well, we know that a disadvantage obviously is that they're going to be able to steal your customers and or people. But are there advantages as well? So think about that. See if you can come up with at least one advantage to being located near to a competitor. Third, why can it be a benefit to be located near a raw material? Think about coffee production in Colombia and think of why it's a benefit to locate it in Colombia. What makes it a benefit? Then you're going to pick a suitable location for a dentist. Think about where you'd want to be if you were a dentist. For a sandwich shop, where would you want to be and why for a sandwich shop? Where would you want to be and why if you owned a car hire firm? Where would make the most sense? And where would it make the most sense to own a haulage company, or basically someone that hauls waste to a dump, from businesses to a dump? Where would you want to be located and why? And then lastly, what can be some advantages of locating your business overseas? I was in the contact center services business. We didn't have goods, so raw materials were not a factor. All of our work was labor intensive. It was people helping customers over the phone. And the number one factor for us was availability of staff. We had to be located where the staff was for the right price. And so my last assignment was in Guyana, South America, second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, on the north coast of South America. And that was because we could hire people and pay them less than $1 US an hour. So the availability of staff was what drove that location overseas, because that was a tenth of what we would have to pay them, for example, in the UK. So that is that particular worksheet. Again, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat as I go through. And for anything that you've missed, a copy of this recording will be on YouTube within just an hour or two of the finish of the lesson. So going back then, going to page 8 now of session 2 in iAchieve, page 8. If you want to follow along in iAchieve, you can. How does a business distribute its products, and how does that impact their choice of a place to locate? I'm just going to check and see if I had any questions in the chat as yet. I don't have anything as yet in the chat. So if you do have specific questions, ask them in the chat and I will take a look before finishing the lesson. So we're going to be looking at 4 different types of distribution. The first one is the simplest. It is direct distribution. That is where a business that produces a product or service also distributes it directly to the customer. And this method of distribution is only really possible in smaller businesses, as businesses need to be able to deal directly with its customers. So it would be incredibly difficult. For example, the example given is Cadbury's chocolate factory. Obviously, they're not selling out of the factory to their customers. They go through another channel to get their goods to the customer. But there can be advantages to making and selling your product. You're cutting out the middle person, so you don't lose any profits that you have to pass on to other people to sell your product. But you're also taking on a lot of other factors besides making your product or service, such as the logistics of how to get it to customers, any taxes you have to charge on your goods and send to the government. And there's some geographical concerns as well, based on where you're located, where the best place for you to be located might not be the best place for your customers to be located. So that is distribution channel number 1, direct distribution. Second is retailer distribution. Now, we're familiar with this. Whenever we go into a convenience shop, for example, we are dealing with a retailer. Whenever we go into any high street shop, for the most part, we are dealing with a retailer. And a retailer is a middle person that sits in between the manufacturer of the goods or services and the customer. And they are experts at how to display your product and how to get your product to move on to your customers, but you sell to them at one rate and they sell to your customers at a higher rate. So you are definitely getting less in terms of profit margin when you sell to a retailer. The third type is a wholesaler. There is a very, very large wholesaler up on the ridge that I used to go to when I managed the convenience shop opposite the Source skate park for about 6 months. And going there, you buy in bulk and you pay far less than what you will ultimately charge. So you pay far less than what you will ultimately charge. So you are buying from a wholesaler and then you're selling to an end customer in your convenience shop. And that's how it works. So in a wholesaler distribution, if you're producing the product, you're selling to a wholesaler at a vastly reduced profit. The wholesalers are selling to a retailer at less than the retailers will charge to customers. And then the retailers put a markup in there and sell it on to the customer. So with a wholesaler, you typically have two middle people, the wholesaler and then the retailer who's buying from the wholesaler. So wholesaler distribution is a third type. And then the fourth type is agents. And agents are, wholesalers are typically used with goods. Agents are typically used with services. And an example of an agent is a travel agent, for example. So a travel agent isn't the provider of the flight. They're not the provider of the hotel. They're not the provider of the rental car. They take a commission in order to connect a customer with the service that they're looking for. And so that's the fourth type of distribution, agents. So if you look in your worksheets again, the second worksheet that is due on Friday is worksheet 21. And I'll go through and give you some pointers on this as well in light of what I just covered with you. So first of all, you're asked to chart the journey of the product to the end user. And the example is Dresses R Us. They make dresses in York. What are the different channels of distribution they could use? And I'd like to see at least one advantage and one disadvantage to each. So, for example, the channels of distribution would be direct, wholesale, retail, and agent. An example of an advantage of direct distribution for them is that they wouldn't be giving up part of their margin to a middle person. But a disadvantage is they'd have to learn about where their customers are and how to get their products directly to those customers. So that would be an advantage and a disadvantage of the direct distribution channel. Do the same for wholesale, retail, and agent. Then similarly, now you're talking about an egg farm. An egg farmer in Somerset, he produces 6,000 eggs per day. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a direct distribution, a wholesale, a retail, and an agent distribution? Advantages and disadvantages of each as they impact an egg farm. Then you've got some research that we'd like you to do. How much do consumers in the UK spend online? So you should be able to find the answer to that pretty quickly on the internet, and it is changing rapidly. What portion of UK spending is online via e-commerce? Again, some research into that, and it is changing rapidly. The big winners of this coronavirus crisis that we're in, some of the big winners are companies like Amazon. For the most part, Amazon simply is an online retailer. They're marketing other people's products to them, and they're offering a low-cost form of distribution. So that is what Amazon does. Now, they do have a couple of products of their own as well that they also market, but primarily they're marketing other people's products. And if you look at Amazon and their performance, they are going through the roof because of the current coronavirus situation. So that's all really that is involved in worksheet 21, and I hope this direction helped. Before I move on to the next section, which is going to be looking at e-commerce, I'm just going to see if any more questions have come in via the chat. I'm looking again at the chat. I'm not seeing any questions. So if you have any questions, please do type them into the chat, and I will make sure that I respond to them before the end of lesson. So lastly, e-commerce. E-commerce is another way in which organizations can distribute their products and services to customers. It's really more indicative of a direct distribution, and it's using, obviously, the internet. So e-commerce offers a range of advantages and disadvantages to customers, and we're going to be going over what those are. So again, thinking first, and this is on page 9 of I Achieve Unit 1, Session 2, page 9. Can you think of any advantages and or disadvantages of e-commerce for buyers or sellers? And type your ideas in there, and then click Save, and then we'll take a look at some of the advantages and disadvantages that you may have pointed out. So I'll give you a few minutes again to complete this text box and save it by going into your own iAchieve account, and then we'll talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages and how to complete worksheet 22. So again, I'll try to come up with a musical interlude that is topical. I don't know about this one. We'll try it.
Product is key to meeting the needs of your market. Make sure it's got a USP. Without one, it'll be too hard to see. You got to beware, lots of products out there. It's got to stand out from the crowd for you to have a chance of getting even a second glance. It's puppies, don't you know? Marketing is easy if you follow the 4 P's. Price, product, place, and promotion. Apply it properly and you will see more clearly what a useful tool it can be. Price, product, place, promotion. An essential part of marketing. In order to achieve success, you must follow the 4 P's. Price, product, place, and promotion. Setting a price, you gotta find the value of the product in your potential customers' minds. Set it too high and they will not buy. The choice that you make depends on the way you want to sell your product today. Is it exclusive or is it aimed at the mass market?
All right, we'll hold it there. And again, thinking about the advantages and disadvantages of e-commerce. So here are some of the advantages and disadvantages that you will be needing to reference in worksheet 22. So advantages gives all organizations the potential to reach and sell to customers around the world. Even a very, very small company has a global reach because of e-commerce. An organization can increase sales and customer numbers without a great expense in costs. It used to be you would have to fund an expansion of a shop, start in a whole new place. And the costs involved in doing that can be prohibitive, particularly to a small company. So now a small company has the same advantages and the same access as a larger company. An organization can easily move into new markets. You don't have to put up a shop. You don't have to pay someone to go into a new market. You literally just open up your product and service to that part of the web. E-commerce, fourthly, allows an organization to be open and available to customers 24 hours a day. You don't necessarily need anyone online to service the customers. Customers can service themselves. And so again, that is a key advantage. 24/7 operations. It would be very, very expensive to do that in a shop type of format. For customers, using e-commerce means that they can shop for products at a time and place that suits them. So for customers, it can be very, very convenient. So if they wake up in the middle of the night and they fancy a certain product or service, they can reference it online right then and there, and it can be delivered to their door. And lastly, e-commerce allows customers to more easily compare prices. So you can shop online and instantly compare the price for the same product across the entire internet just at the click of a button. So that is a very, very significant advantage. But there are also some disadvantages to e-commerce as well, and you may have come up with these as you went through your experience in the previous exercise. So some of the disadvantages are you've got to have different skills in an organization. So if you're manufacturing a particular good, you might have people that are good at manufacturing, laborers, but they might not know how to design a website, for example, or how to distribute a product to a customer in the cheapest possible way. So you need different kinds of skill sets within your organization if you're going to distribute your product directly through e-commerce. Secondly, there are additional costs if business expands as a result of growth in e-commerce. For example, extra staff might be needed to service customers directly, to help package and distribute products. And this extra recruitment will come at a cost for the business. Thirdly, if the organization has a website, it's got to keep that website maintained. It must have current sales information, current pricing on it, and the website must be managed in order for it to be effective. Think what would happen if you bought something online only to be told that the price had gone up and you had to rebuy it at a higher price. That would not be acceptable for most customers. Also, for customers, e-commerce means that there is little or no personal contact. So you don't have that personal touch during the sales process. Think about the last things you bought and how important that one-on-one contact was to buying it. To some people, it may be very unimportant. To others, it might be extremely important. So also, you've got the difficulty in returning items. You have to get it back to the distributor in order to return it. Then you've got the fact that you can't touch or feel, or in the case of food products, for example, taste test, sample the products. You have to know what you want in order to have the most effective experience with e-commerce. So e-commerce is not an option for any customers that want to pay for their purchases with cash. So if all you have is cash, good luck using that on an e-commerce site. You've got to have an electronic form of payment in order to pay. and you can only access e-commerce if you have access to the internet. So that's a fairly comprehensive list of the advantages and disadvantages, and you'll be using those in the third worksheet that's due by this Friday, worksheet 22. And I'll just go over some pointers on how to get the best mark possible on worksheet 22. So what is e-commerce? Well, we just described what it is. See if you can summarize that in your own words. Secondly, what is m-commerce? And I'll give you a clue. Many of you are looking at this presentation on the M part of m-commerce. So what is m-commerce? It's electronic, but it's from a particular type of device. So what is m-commerce? Why is e-commerce becoming more important? What's driving it? You would know probably better than I exactly why more people are buying online. Question 4, and this is very relevant to what we're going through right now. You may have heard that the government is very focused on ensuring that you can access your education online. Why is the UK government interested in ensuring that everyone has access to the internet as it impacts e-commerce? Why are they so interested in ensuring everyone has access to the internet? So think about that. Question 5, a website is the most important marketing tool for e-commerce. If you owned a new e-commerce business selling hair products, list the 5 most important features of your website. What must that website have in order to sell your hair products? Question 6, what are customers expecting from online businesses? What do you expect when you shop online, when you order online? What is your expectation of that e-commerce business? Question 7, a consumer advantage of e-commerce is the ability to research and compare prices. What's the impact of this on a business? What does this mean for you as the business supplying those products and services if they are instantly comparable across the internet? What do you have to make sure you do in order to be successful? Then question 8, you've got a case study, and this is the last question that will be due this week or by this weekend, and it's on Julie's Jewelry. She has 10 shops across England. She's finding it hard to make a profit because of her rent payments, and they keep going up. Also, less people are visiting local high streets where her shops are located. So she's decided to close her shops and create an online store and sell and only sell her jewelry via e-commerce. So give one reason why some customers are going to be disappointed by this decision. What are they going to be losing? What are they going to be losing? B, give one example of why Julie's process can be more competitive online. She's distributing through 10 shops across England. What's going to be easier about her online operation? Think of it that way. And lastly, why is it likely to be an expensive process for Julie to create an online store? Well, you've got to think about a couple of different expenses. First of all, what she's having to get out of these 10 shops and what expenses are involved in closing them, particularly if they have employees, which they must probably each have at least one employee. What expenses is she taking on? And she's totally changing her business. So what expenses does she need to invest in with e-commerce that she didn't have to invest in with retail? If you can come up with one expense associated with closing down retail and one expense associated with setting up e-commerce, I think that's an excellent effort and probably an A response. And then the last table is just to complete the table below. What are the advantages and disadvantages of e-commerce for the business? What are their advantages and disadvantages? And for the customers of that business, what are their advantages and disadvantages? And we've gone through a pretty exhaustive list. So again, all three worksheets are due for 10x by this Friday. I'm backing down from my original request that we get everything up to worksheet 26 in by Easter, because I did want to go through this in more detail and cover with you what an excellent response would be. So hats off to those of you who have attended this session. You have a distinct advantage now in completing the worksheets. Please do remember, if you are one of these stragglers on session 19, which is on the Boston Matrix, please make sure that you also get me that one as well by Friday. So all three worksheets, please, due in by Friday. And I hope that this session helped to take you through some of the items associated with the place that you locate your business. I'm just checking now in the chat. I don't see any questions, so I will give you 20 minutes or so back today. Thank you so much for attending. If you need to review this session, it will be online at the YouTube channel, and it will be there for about an hour from now. It should be accessible online. It will be listed under your specific class as 10x. So you'll be able to reference it on the 10x business playlist. Thanks very much. Really appreciate you joining, and have a wonderful rest of the day.